All right, ACC. Let's talk ACC football. And in the Atlantic Division, the Clemson Tigers. Well, you can't win the ACC every year. And that's finally what happened last year, not even playing in the championship game. So, whoa, Clemson. Um, but this ukulele kid at quarterback, uh, that was just weird. You know, he comes out there a couple of years ago for Lawrence, and he throws the ball over the place in a couple of games, including Notre Dame. And it's like, oh man, just wait until Lawrence leaves. This guy might even be better. And he was terrible, terrible. And I don't want to hear things about, yeah, well, they had some inexperience here, and they weren't as good here, and they were the supporting cast there. Don't hand me that. He was terrible. So maybe it was mental. Maybe he got his, maybe he thought he was going to be a superstar too soon. I don't know. But if he plays anywhere near like that, you could actually see that kid. They got Klubnik, big time,
Klubnik, yeah,
yeah,
Kate
the
Klubnik, yes.
big time recruited quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up uh, taking over. And if he does, and he's a superstar, okay, maybe Clemson will be fine because defensively, I don't know about. I'm not necessarily sure about the back seven. Trenton Simpson's a really good linebacker, but the secondary is going to be an issue. But they are loaded on the defensive line. I mean, you talk about Xavier Thomas. You got the Breezy kid, Miles Murphy. I mean, they are just loaded on the defensive line. Shipley is an exciting running back. Nagata at wide receiver, but they got to get good quarterback play. If they do, they're going to be very competitive. They're probably going to win this division. They might even win the conference. But I don't know whether or not they're going to be back to being Clemson dominating, Tigers football, unless they get superstar quarterback play.
Well, they're going to have to get the quarterback play. I'll call him DJU because his last name is the toughest pronunciation of any of any player in college football, and he's going to have to come around this year. And if he doesn't, he's going to be on a short leash. Rest assured, Dabo Swinney will not put up with that. Even as poorly as Clemson appeared to have played last year, they still won 10 football games.
Sure.
Yeah, and they were still ranked in the top 10 in the country in overall defense last year. And the fact of the matter is, Swinney has said this looks to be the best defense he's ever had at Clemson. If that's the case, they're going to be a very, very tough team to have to play inside this ACC conference here. They're going to be angry. They're going to be mad. They're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder with what might be the best defense in college football. They have to be the team to beat in this conference, and if they get any quarterback play, as you mentioned, they could be back in the college playoff.
Yeah, he's talking, and he does. He talks a lot, and he deserves to because he backs it up. But their defensive line is definitely as good as he says. It's the rest of the defense that's completely unproven. But yeah, they got to get good quarterback play. As far as the schedule, at Wake Forest, at Boston College, at Florida State, at Notre Dame. So there was some tough road games. They get Miami at home. Um, it's not a schedule though because that's tough because the non-conference crap game at all is Notre Dame, and that is on the road, and that's it. And the other thing we have to keep in mind, Clemson is not playing any SEC like probably they should be. They don't have to play that kind of schedule. So because they get to play an ACC schedule, that gives them a little bit more breathing room than if they were playing in the SEC. So yeah, I think the schedule works in their favor, but it's up to the quarterback.
Well, as you mentioned here, the past 11 years, 10 win seasons running for this football program here. They're a win machine. And, people might get tired of hearing Dabo Swinney and all the rah-rahness and everything that comes out of him. But the guy does recruit, the guy does coach, and the guy does win football games. And I think he'll be back on the winning track again this year.
Let's also point out the big story, though, that really could be a major impact, and that is the fact that for the first time in a long time, those hotshot coordinators are gone.
Yeah, it's not gonna help the football team at all. Brent Venables going over to Oklahoma, that's a big, big hole to have to fill. We rave about the defense, but when you lose a coordinator that put all that together, that could end up being a different tune. So that'll end up seeing how that plays out as well.
The new offensive coordinator is one of their former quarterbacks, Brandon Streeter. So on both sides of the ball, they have new coordinators for the first time in a long time, and we'll see how that impacts them. NC State, this is the team that I think is going to have the chance to, if Clemson doesn't do it, I don't think it's Wake Forest. I think it's NC State. Dave Doran has done a tremendous job there. The recruiting, he always seems to find these really good players at NC State. Devin Leary came out last year and did a fantastic job. He's going to be even better this year. He's got a couple of really exciting receivers, and they've got a lot of good talent on defense. So you have a really good defense. You've got a really good quarterback, something we don't know if Clemson has. And this is the team that, if Clemson doesn't win again, this is the team that's going to do it.
Well, this is the it team this football season here, because every show that I've done in the country, every host, everybody is all over NC State like white on rice. And they should be, for the job that Dave Doran did last football season, for all of what they got coming back this year. A ton of talent coming back. They're going to be very, very difficult to beat. There's no question about that. But sometimes when you're casting in this role, and their season win total was 8.5, it boomed up to 9. That means you have to win 10 games to cash that ticket here. Now, do they have 10 wins in here this football season here? That might be a stretch, but they do have a stacked deck coming back this year as far as talent is concerned.
I think they do. I think they do. Schedule-wise, if you take a look, their non-conference tough one is going to be early at East Carolina, which is not easy, but they should win. And they host Texas Tech with a new coach. So those are their tough non-conference games. They should start 4-0 when they go to Clemson on October 1st.
Well, they start out 4-0. That's going to bode real well for them and their prospects. They won 9 football games last year and improved their stats really well. They did it the right way. I mean, nothing was phony about this football team last year. They appear to be better this year, so they indeed could be the team breathing down Clemson's neck.
Last year, it was Wake Forest who won the division, played in the ACC title game, and they won 11 games. And a lot of that had to do with quarterback Sam Hartman. We talked about just a little bit on yesterday's show. Still don't know exactly what's going on health-wise. Luckily, I haven't heard anything yet that says, oh, Sam Hartman's out for the year. So whatever it is, hopefully it's temporary and he'll play this year and he'll be in the right mind, whatever it is. They can't lose Sam Hartman. But if Sam Hartman plays, they're going to be very dangerous again offensively. They've got loads of offense with Hartman and A.T. Perry at receiver. They have a couple of decent players on defense. It's not as good as a defense as NC State or Clemson, and that's why they need Sam Hartman.
Unquestionably, this football team went from 4 wins to 11 wins last year, and they did it legitimately. They put up a great offense, 41 points a game on 475 yards a contest. There's nothing fluky at all about what it is they did. They outyarded their opponents handily in most football games. They're going to have, as you mentioned, Hartman to improve any at all on that. He's got A.T. Perry, wide receiver, coming back here. That will help this football program, but it's all going to revolve around Hartman. What he does is going to be the success for this football program here. I don't think they'll surpass the 11 wins they had last year, even if he were to play all season long, but they'll still be a very good football team.
3 potential sleepers in this division: Louisville, Florida State, and then you have Boston College. And with Louisville, it's about Malik Cunningham, very exciting, athletic quarterback. Not sure whether or not they have enough, though, on defense. That's where I'm a little bit concerned. They do have a couple players here and there, like Abdullah and Clark, and even Quincy Riley. So they have a trio of really dynamic players. They're going to have to really step up overall. And Cunningham is one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. That's going to help him out. We know Satterfield can coach. So I like the direction this Louisville program is going. And this could be, and probably should be, Satterfield's best year. Schedule-wise, they got to go to Central Florida. They also host South Florida as far as outside the conference. And they, other than that, James Madison. And then the biggest non-conference game is their yearly end-of-the-season matchup with Kentucky.
Yeah, this is a Louisville football team here, I think is going to be sneaky good this year. There's 6.5 wins for the season win total, and I think that's one of my overplays that you have to consider this year. Malik Cunningham coming back will be a fourth-year starter, a lot like Desmond Ridder was at Cincinnati. And the stats this football team is putting up, they're consistently good year after year under Satterfield. He made his mark at Appalachian State. We talked about that earlier, and he got him this job here at Louisville. This team's averaged better than 440 yards a game, have Satterfield's teams here. They're not going to be lacking at all for offense here. The question is, can they defensively stop the other opponent here? They're the funny football team that, if you will, that they would win the yards and lose the games. And it's like you made me scratch my head. It's the opposite of Andy Reid. In Andy Reid's heyday, he would win games and get outstatted. And Louisville was doing the opposite here. They were winning the stats and losing football games. That has got to change for this football program. It changed a little bit last year, and if it does that way this year, I think they could be a real surprise sleeper team this year.
And any other team that could be a surprise is Mike Norville and Florida State. I know things didn't look good early last year. You know, the first year under Norville, they win 3 games. They start out 0-4, and everybody's wondering if he's going to get fired any week now. They turned things around. If they would have beaten Florida in a very close game at the end of the season, they would have gone to a bowl. So I think Mike Norville's got them headed in the right direction. Jordan Travis comes back at quarterback, so he has to take that next step. They do lose a couple of big players on defense, including Jermaine Johnson, who was a first-round draft pick. But Jamie Robinson is a spectacular player in the secondary. I just think Mike Norville is the right coach, and I think Florida State is going to get better. They're going to go a bowl this year. Again, once it's going to be up to that quarterback position and offense. I just don't think they have enough on offense yet. And I'm not sure Travis is that guy. But as soon as he gets a really good quarterback, then I think at that point you can take a look at Florida State as maybe a true contender.
Well, Travis transfers in from Louisville, where he couldn't break through beyond Malik Cunningham, so he can benefit from this position here with Mike Norville and Florida State. The good news for Florida State is a third of their starts last year were made by freshmen. That's the third highest in the country. And you know that's that formula that I love doing when these young kids get all those starts and they come back the next year. This could be that breakthrough year for Florida State. And Bobby Bowden is probably rolling over in his grave when he reads the fact that after 41 winning seasons, this team has suffered 4 straight losing seasons. Who would have ever thought that with this Florida State football program? But I think it ends here this year. I think Mike Norville was a good hire for this program, and we'll see the results this season.
And then Boston College is the other potential sleeper because of Jerkovich at quarterback. There's a possibility if he stays healthy based on his size and his arm strength, they could be a first-round draft pick. That's the kind of talent he is. But everything's got to go well. He's got to stay healthy. He's got a good running back, as they often do. He's got an exciting receiver in Zay Flowers. So if he could stay healthy, they're going to have a dangerous quarterback. The question I have is whether or not they have enough on defense. I don't really look and see a whole lot of playmakers on defense, guys that stand out. They're going to be competitive. They're going to go to a bowl. And because they have Jerkovich, they could be interesting. But I think maybe Hafley just needs a little bit more time. Unfortunately, if Jerkovich stays healthy and they do have a decent season, he's probably going to go pro, and then it's almost like starting over again. But I do think Hafley's the right guy.
He is the right guy, and Jerkovich could be the guy to lead them to the promised land. He's that talented. As far as they're concerned for the success this football season, as you mentioned, it has to happen on the defense. The defensive line's got 6 players back that played a lot of snaps the last two football seasons here. The secondary finished 3rd in the country in passing defense. So if they can put some glue in between those two at the linebacker position here and shore that defense up, this football team could be a little bit of a surprise in the ACC.
And then Syracuse rounds out the division, and Dino Babers, they got close last year. They really did. I thought that they were going to maybe get that bowl, which would have really been big for Babers. It didn't happen. So this is now going to be his last chance. I don't think there's any question that if he doesn't go to a bowl, he's not going to be back. Schrader's back at quarterback. I think he's the right quarterback for the system. And Sean Tucker is one of the best running backs in the entire country. So they need like an 1,800-yard season from Sean Tucker in order for them to have a shot in this division. I like some of the players they have in the back 7 on defense. I think a lot's going to depend on the schedule, and the schedule does give them, some potential games that they might be able. I mean, for instance, if they can knock off Purdue at home on September 17th, maybe that's the type of win that can get them to a bowl.
This football team's got the chance to really surprise a lot of people this football season here. Dino Babers, number one, is in the hottest of all hot seats, as you mentioned. He's got to win or he's gone. What he did last year is not a single upperclassman started a football game last year. He went with the kids last year, and that's going to benefit him this football season here for doing just that. But the proof to me in the pudding is the fact that in doing that last year, this football team was 1 in 17 in the yards, meaning they were outstatted in 17 of their 18 previous games. Last year, they went 5 and 3 in the stats. That's dramatic improvement. And if that improvement continues this year, look for Syracuse to get over that 4.5 win total, and Dino Babers saves his job.
All right. Now let's get to the other division where the Miami Hurricanes might end up being the team to beat. I think they are, because no longer is the best quarterback at Pittsburgh. Now it's at Miami with Tyler Van Dyke. And look, there's a lot of talk that Tyler Van Dyke, not sure exactly how much time Miami's going to have with Van Dyke if he has a really big year, NFL calling and all that kind of stuff. But Tyler Van Dyke is a heck of a prospect. He's like that old school pocket passer, strong arm, big guy. And they're going to have a pretty good offense. The question, though, on offense is they lose their 2 top wide receivers. So they're going to have to count on transfers and other unproven receivers. But the talent's there. And defensively, I think the secondary is going to be the strength of the defense. But the front seven, they don't have the players yet. That's okay. I think they still have enough to win the division. Probably not enough to win the overall ACC title game. But you have Mario Cristobal there. And being in South Florida, it's just they're the fans just feel like they've just got Santa Claus came back and gave them the biggest present ever, another chance at having a run of just greatness. And I don't think Mario Cristobal, if he's successful, he's not going anywhere unless an NFL team wants him. He's staying at Miami for as long as he has to.
Well, he can probably write his own ticket here. Like I mentioned in the show when we previewed the Group of 5 teams yesterday, a lot of the former alumni are rallying around the program here. Michael Irvin, he's at almost every practice working with the wide receivers. That's great to see that stuff, okay? But what I think is going to help Tyler Van Dyke this year is what I'm reading is they may have the best running backs in the conference. Miami of Florida. Now, if they do, that'll help Van Dyke obviously set up the offensive attack, which would be really, really good. We talked about Mario Cristobal, what a great job he's done recruiting. He'll continue to keep doing that. He's doing that now in the state of Florida. He's out recruiting all the other Florida schools here. This is a football team you got to put on your radar list because they can make some noise this year.
I think, like you said, if they're going to get over the hump, especially offensively, some of those skill position players that they're saying look really good that haven't really been completely proven yet, well, that's what we have to see, with our own eyes. Schedule-wise, they're at Texas A&M, September 17th. So We'll find out how good they are. And they also got to go to Clemson. So that's tough, but they do avoid NC State at least. Okay, Pittsburgh. Pat Narduzzi did a tremendous job and has done with this program, and it finally paid off. Pickett, the quarterback, winning the ACC championship, but now no more Pickett. At least they made a nice move, bringing in Keaton Slovis from USC. Unfortunately, Addison leaves and goes to USC, the Biletnikoff winner at wide receiver. There's still, pretty good talent on offense, and if Slovis has a really good season, minus Mark Whipple, by the way, the offensive coordinator, okay, I can see Pitt competing again because they're always going to be really good on defense.
Well, they're supposed to be good on defense because it's a Pat Narduzzi football team. But take a look in the 4-year stat review in the Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine, and you'll see that the defense has regressed each of the last 2 football seasons. He's put a lot more of the emphasis on the offense because he had Kenny Pickett there, and he took advantage of doing just that. He's going to have to shore things up defensively and get back to Pat Narduzzi defense, if you will. They held teams to only 5.1 yards a play last year. That was good, but they giving up too many chunks of yards, big plays, and doing stuff like that. It's a football team that everybody has got on their radar this year, but I think it's for the wrong reasons. I know they brought Keaton Slovis in from Southern Cal when Jackson Dart took his job away from him. So that's good news. The bad news is they lost Jordan Addison. He was the Fred Biletnikoff award-winning wide receiver last year, and he's now at Southern Cal. He was Pickett's go-to guy, and he's no longer there. So they're going to have to fill that hole on the offense. I just think there's too much adulation out there right now for the Pitt Panthers here, and I see them not getting to the 8.5 season win total.
Yeah, the beginning of the schedule is kind of tough. They get West Virginia, they host Tennessee, and then they go to Western Michigan, who beat them last year. But if they can win 2 out of the 3, and maybe they win all 3, they could be 6-0 when they go to Louisville. So it's a pretty decent schedule, but that Tennessee game in week 2 is going to be the tough one, especially since they upset Tennessee last year.
Well, one little interesting stat on them that I think people will like who like the Pitt Panthers is our stat you will like inside the magazine. And it's simply this, that the Pitt Panthers have won more than 10 games 4 times in their school history. They followed those 4 more than 10 win seasons up with 9, 11, 11, and 9 wins. So that bodes well for them that way this year. But I have my reservations about Narduzzi and where the defense is going.
Okay. Now, the rest of the division, not looking all that strong. Maybe North Carolina is the team because of Mac Brown, but he is going to have so many new faces on offense besides Josh Downs at wide receiver. So, hey, you know what? If he strikes gold with another young quarterback, okay, maybe. But unless that happens, I think they're maybe starting to turn the corner back to where Mac Brown realizes if I'm going to compete, I got to get better on defense. So maybe it was about Sam Howell on the offense the last couple of years. I could see North Carolina turning back to being more of a defensive team. So I think it's a transition year because of that. Virginia Tech has a new head coach, so I have no idea what to expect there. They get the Marshall transfer quarterback. It's not going to be pretty probably. Virginia, they get a first-year head coach. We talked about Clemson losing their coordinators. Tony Elliott, the offensive coordinator, goes to Virginia. You mentioned Brennan Armstrong, a quarterback. They're going to have a ton of points again this year. The problem is they gave up a ton of points, and I don't think that's going to change very much. And Jeff Collins, it's a hard gig at Georgia Tech. I think he's the right coach. I know the fans aren't happy with him. But Jeff Sims is an exciting quarterback. I think they're going to be a little bit better this year. And then Duke has a new head coach, and Mike Elko with Cutcliffe gone. They're not going to be very good. So there's a lot of teams there. There's 4 or 5 teams that probably aren't going to be very good this year.
Well, of all the teams you mentioned, if one of them ends up with a winning season, that will be good. Good news for one of those football teams. Most likely Virginia because of Brennan Armstrong. He's a dynamic quarterback. He can fill the air with yards and touchdowns and all those good things, but they're going to have to play a lot better brand of defense. You mentioned Virginia Tech coming into here. Last season, they were very, very young. They started 174 games, did the underclassmen. That was 6th most in the country. So they could improve that way this year because of doing something just like that. North Carolina, I mean, unbelievably, they lost so many games last year as favorites. It was unbelievable. 5 times they were favored in football games, and they got the rug pulled out them in 5 different football games. And the coup de grace came when they lost to South Carolina as 13-point favorites in the Duke's Mayo Bowl game. So right now, obviously, Mac Brown has got a lot of work to do ahead of him, and he could end up struggling again this football season unless he learns from his all the mistakes that they made last football season here. So out of that whole group, I would say Virginia would most likely be the team that would have a winning season.
All right. And by the way, Elliott hired Air Force's defensive coordinator to be the defensive coordinator at Virginia. And we know how good Air Force's defense has been the last few years. So if they can play a little bit of defense, then you're probably right that because of Armstrong, Virginia is that team.